You buy a house in Boise, Idaho. Nice neighborhood, good schools, everything looks great. Then you get your first property tax bill and discover something your neighbor across the street doesn't have to pay. The CID, Community Infrastructure District, charges what seems like a small levy rate, just 0.00289% of your home's value. No big deal, right? But here's what that actually means. For a home assessed at $488,000, that's an extra $1,121 per year, on top of all your regular property taxes, every single year, for up to 25 more years, possibly until 2050. And when you multiply that across hundreds of homes in the district, you're talking millions of dollars in additional tax revenue flowing to the developer. Your neighbor across the street, outside the boundary, pays none of this. Same schools, same roads, same fire department. According to homeowners fighting this system, they're paying 40% more in total property taxes than neighbors just outside the line. But here's the part that really shows you how this was set up. When the district was created in 2010, only 3 people voted to authorize $50 million in bonds. And this is where it gets interesting. Like and subscribe, because this story is about to get wild. Welcome to Harris Ranch. Let me introduce you to the key players here. Doug Fowler runs Barber Valley Development. He's developing Harris Ranch on behalf of the Harris Family Limited Partnership. That's the family that owns the land. So in 2010, they want to create this special taxing district. Idaho law says you need a vote to authorize the bonds. Take a look at this. 3 votes were cast. Vote number 1, Barber Valley Development. That's Doug Fowler's company doing the development. Vote number 2, Harris Family Limited Partnership. That's the family that owns the land being developed. So 2 of the 3 votes came from the businesses seeking to create the district. And for the 3rd and final vote, it must have been an unbiased party, right? Not exactly. Vote number 3 was a ranch worker who lived on the Harris family property as a tenant. And here's the detail that really matters. He registered to vote before the election, didn't own any property in the district, and would never pay a single dollar of the taxes he voted to approve. Those 3 votes, 2 from the developer's businesses and 1 from their tenant, authorized the district to issue up to $50 million in bonds. Now, why does that matter? Because bonds are debt. The district takes on $50 million in debt to pay the developer for building infrastructure. Then homeowners pay back that debt through extra property taxes for decades. It's essentially a way to make future homeowners, people who haven't even bought their houses yet, pay the developer back for work he's doing today. 3 votes approved $50 million in bonds that would be paid back by future homeowners. 2 votes were from the developer's own companies. 1 was from a tenant who registered before the election and would never pay a dollar of the taxes. Drop a comment below. Do you think this should be legal? But let's talk about how the boundaries were drawn, because this is where it gets really interesting. The Harris family, the landowners whose companies voted to create this district, drew the boundaries to exclude their own homes from paying the extra taxes. According to documents, they carved out their houses from the center of the community to avoid taxes they were imposing on everyone else. The homeowners put it this way in their legal filing. The map of the Boise CID looks like a giant jigsaw puzzle with a third of its pieces missing. Over 500 existing homes were excluded from the district. And why? According to Doug Fowler himself, existing homes were excluded because he believed those residents would reject a tax increase. So they drew the boundaries to only include vacant land that they controlled. Land they would sell to future homeowners. Homeowners who would have no choice but to pay the extra taxes because it's written into the deed. The developer's own family excluded themselves from the taxes while imposing them on the homeowners within the CID boundaries. Legal, apparently? Fair? You tell me in the comments. So what is developer Doug Fowler charging homeowners for? In 2021, he requested $1.9 million from the CID, not for the cost of building roads, for the hypothetical value of the land the roads were built on. According to the appraisal he submitted, his argument was that he could have built houses on that land instead of roads. Now, I'm just going to point out, every developer has to build roads. That's not a special sacrifice. That's what you do when you develop land. The Homeowners Association sent a letter objecting, a development without any access roads, in which homeowners would have to hike perhaps a half dozen blocks or more to get to their homes, would not be an attractive development. Then in October 2021, the CID board approved a $22 million package. $5 million in new bonds, $10 million in extra property taxes and $7 million in additional payments to the developer. And who decides if these payments are reasonable? The CID Board, which consists of 3 Boise City Council members. At the time of that approval, it was Council President Elaine Clegg, T.J. Thompson, and Holly Woodings. So City Council members, who receive campaign donations from developers, sit on the board that approves paying those same developers millions of dollars in taxpayer money. That's the system as it exists. And speaking of donations, let's talk about Kent Goldthorpe. He's a commissioner on ACHD, the Ada County Highway District. Now, if you don't live in Idaho, you might not know what ACHD is. It's the entity that approves road connections and access for new developments. So if you're a developer and you want to build a subdivision, you need ACHD to approve connecting your roads to the existing highway system, including Harris Ranch. So ACHD commissioners have a lot of power over whether your development can move forward. With that context, let's look at Goldthorpe's campaign donations. I have the receipts. In the 2022 election, he received $2,000 each from Harris Family Limited Partnership, Barber Valley Development Inc., and Barber Valley Irrigation Co. That's $6,000 total, from 3 companies all tied to developer Doug Fowler. But the donation limit in Idaho is $1,000 per election. When the Idaho statesman asked about it, Goldthorpe returned $5,000. Doug Fowler defended this, saying, "Nobody intentionally thought they were doing anything incorrect or they wouldn't have done it in the first place. But here's what caught my attention. According to Boise Dev, campaign finance records show Goldthorpe received donations from these same 3 entities in 2014 and 2018 that pushed him over the contribution limit in those elections too. 3 election cycles, 2014, 2018, and 2022. Same politician who approves road access for developments. Same 3 donor entities tied to the same developer. Same violation each time, and according to the records, it was only in after a newspaper asked questions that the excess donations were returned. Drop a comment. Am I missing something here? Because I can't figure out how the exact same thing happens 3 times across 8 years by accident. So homeowners in Harris Ranch finally had enough. They formed the Harris Ranch CID Taxpayers Association and filed for judicial review in 2021 to stop these payments. But watch what happens next, because this is where it gets absolutely wild. The city of Boise has fronted a total of $700,000 in taxpayer money to defend the CID against the homeowners' lawsuits. For context, that's more than what Boise spent to replace the fire-damaged playground at Castle Hills Park, a playground for kids that cost $660,000 in 2024. According to the agreement, the Harris Ranch CID will pay this money back to the city over 20 years. And how does the CID get money? From the homeowners through their extra property taxes. So let me break down what's actually happening here. Harris Ranch homeowners sue the CID to stop the extra taxes. City of Boise pays $700,000 to lawyers to defend the CID. The CID owes the city that $700,000 back. The CID collects money from the homeowners through their property taxes. So the homeowners who filed the lawsuit will eventually pay back the $700,000 the city spent fighting against their own lawsuit. Now, I'm no lawyer, but it looks like the homeowners are funding both sides of their own legal battle. But wait, there's more. According to Boise Dev, the developer could reimburse some of the legal costs, but it has contractual limitations, and reimbursement is entirely at the discretion of the developer. If the developer decides they don't want to pay legal costs, the homeowners will likely pay it all. And here's my favorite part. A city staff memo defending this arrangement said the CID acquires real property and infrastructure for the city and other governmental agencies without a significant added cost to the city, except for the $700,000 in taxpayer money. Now, in March 2025, while all of this is still being litigated in the Idaho Supreme Court, the Harris family made what they called a generous donation to the city of Boise. They donated geothermal water rights that could quadruple the city's geothermal system capacity. Mayor Lauren McLean praised the donation, saying, "The Harris family's generosity will have a lasting impact for generations." Now, I want to talk about something bigger here. When businesses and wealthy families make large donations to cities and governments, is it purely philanthropic, or are there other motivations at play? I'm not saying the Harris family had ulterior motives with this specific donation. They say it's about legacy and environmental stewardship, and that's a perfectly valid reason to give, but it does raise a broader question worth thinking about. So I'll just pose the question to you. When families and corporations with ongoing business interests make substantial donations to that city, should we always take those donations at face value? Or is it worth asking if there might be other considerations beyond pure philanthropy? I genuinely don't know the answer. Maybe it is purely about legacy and doing good for the community. That happens. But it's also worth thinking about these dynamics when you see major donations from entities that have significant financial relationships with the recipient. Look, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I've shown you the public records and provided all the links in the video description below. What I will say is this: the system gives Boise developers the opportunity to profit twice in Boise, once from selling the homes, then again from taxing those same homeowners. The approvals come from city council members who receive campaign donations from that same developer, and when homeowners sue, they end up paying for both sides of the lawsuit. Whether you think that's brilliant business or something else, that's for you to decide. National stories get the headlines, but it's these local issues that hit your wallet directly. If you want more deep dives into the stories that actually affect your taxes and your community, subscribe. I'm just getting started with these.